Hi everyone, today I will be sharing my experience with you on this vertical GPU mounting kit coming from Montech, known as VGM. As why am I so hyped to share this with you? Because I find that this mounting kit, there are lots of pros as compared to the cons. And of course, every product, there is pros and cons, which I will talk about this kit in this video. With this said, I'd like to thank Montech to have provided this kit for me to share with my viewers. Let's begin. At first look of the package itself, it doesn't look very appetizing. It has all the description and such, but I believe they deliberately make use of cardboard, recycle stuff to save the environment, which is one very good point. Now, what's more important is inside the package, where you see this is the riser cable 4.0. Okay, it's protected by this anti-static bag. Then these are all the brackets that you will need, the mounting screws, zip ties and such, and this is another piece of the bracket, and that's it. Simple, effective, and yet save the environment. That's good. Now coming to the package itself, as I've shown you the riser cable, when I first removed this riser cable I was shocked. Reason being, the quality of the riser cable is so good. See, with all this protective and such, even with this, it's not weak in all the contact points. It's pretty strong. So that's the reason why I was so hyped about this vertical GPU mounting kit. Next is the mechanism of the bracket itself. Now, this package does not come with an instruction, but you will be able to feather it with the diagram on the package itself. So that's actually what I did. Now, before you piece up this piece together, right, first thing to take note is you can remove this. They have provided you with a Allen Phillips screw, or should I say screwdriver. Then the zip ties, you can take it out. Now, inside this package itself, right, there are screws over here, so don't lose them. Remove them carefully. Alright, screws are over here. Let me just use this. These are all the screws that you will need. And what type of screws you have? This is meant for your PCIe bracket screws, and this is for you to mount the brackets, the tiny ones. So I'll just place the tiny ones first at one end. Okay, here we go. And there will be two special round screws. This is meant for your riser cable to be fit on this slot over here, which I'm going to show you later. So once you prepare the screws itself, right, looking at the diagram on the box itself, it's pretty straightforward, but I'll show you. What you need is, this is the base, then this is the place where you mount your GPU. So what is needed, this placed at the bottom first, and this goes to the top, and you flushes the holes over here, and this is where you screw all the tiny screws in place. And take note, when you're screwing all this in, I will show you, it can only go one direction and it should flush. I'm just going to finish up. There are a total of 5 holes, 1, 2, and flip to the back, 3, 4, and 5. I've tightened up all the screws from here, 2 points, and from the back, 3 points. Now, just make sure that when you tighten the screws right, it flushes with the bracket itself, be the back over here or over here. Next will be housing the riser cable to the platform over here, but before I do so, I'd like to talk about the riser cable itself. First of all, it's very good quality cables. See, all of which. Next will be, I like how Montech did the housing on both ends, this end over here and this end over here, where you have the Montech logo. Now this housing is pretty thick. What it does is, it's giving a fixed holding position, a good fixed holding position between the cable and to your PCB, so that your PCB will not flex. One thing, your cables will not be so brittle as in like easily coming off from the PCB itself. And not only this, at this end where you slot this to your motherboard, this holder gives you more space to grip on and to plug to your motherboard, or even to remove to your motherboard. Over at the other end, which is this, as mentioned, it gives a rigidity between the cable and your PCB. So look at how it has been crammed to the PCB. It's very sturdy, the whole piece. So this will prevent your PCB from bending, as some of the riser cables, right, which does not have this, your PCB can flex easily, but this does not. See, I'm using a bit of strength. Besides this, right, I find out that there is another function of this holder over here, the whole piece holder at the bottom of the slot where you place your graphic card. I'll explain to you why. Now, positioning on the bracket itself, for this riser cable, right, you can either place at the first 2 hole over here or the inner 2 hole. Now, if you place it over here, this is near your motherboard area, and I wouldn't advise you to do so. Reason being, right, this cable is pretty, I mean, it's sturdy but pretty stiff. So what if your graphic card is pretty bulky, right? You might have problem bending and such. And also to the fact that it's near to your motherboard have some other apparatus, or should I say equipment, like the M.2 heatsink and such. So this might hinder the cable from bending nicely and to fit your bracket in, because you need force to push the cable. I would advise you to house it at this level over here, whereby it sits over here away from your motherboard and towards your front panel, giving a gap. Best is in fact to give a gap between your graphic card and your motherboard. First is the air circulation between your graphic card and your motherboard, so no heat absorption is accumulated in this area. Next will be the cable easily bend, and to plug to the PCIe slot of your motherboard. So I'm going to fasten it over here. Now, when you fasten the screws to the, fasten the riser platform over here to the bracket, right, make sure you do not screw them tightly at the beginning. Just anchor it properly, then do the rear. Reason for this, right, if you tighten this all the way, your PCB will be like lifting up from the back. Okay, and when you want to tighten this, right, you're giving tension to your PCB, which might snap off and break at the front. So just make sure that you just anchor it loosely. Oops, sorry. Okay, this is the point. See, hold it in place, don't have to fasten it, then do the rear. And when you do the rear, same thing, don't fasten it all the way. See, this is gripped loosely. The PCB is moving off from the bracket. So what you need to do right now is evenly distribute your balance on both area when you screw them. So with this, say, right, your PCB will not walk one side, having it one side tilted up, the other side going in. Like this, right, you will have a good balance of the PCB being parallel to the bracket itself. And earlier on I mentioned to you, right, the back of this housing itself, it does as a function because it does support the PCB from the back. Okay, let me just show you. I'm not so sure you can see. See, the whole holder is actually supporting the PCB, which is good, because when you slot the card in, right, your PCB will not warp. And I do have a theory or practical sense that this might help the graphic card to really be parallel to your case instead of having it sag, because there is a support not only this pillar but also the bracket itself, I mean the holder itself, supporting the card. Alright, with this say right, now come to a point whereby if you were to house it this way, which is away from your motherboard, take note, you'll be able to do on 2-slot graphic card, which I have with me right now. See, this is 2-slot. If you have 3-slot, right, which meaning to say all 3 slot is being occupied, and if you were to push it to the front, right, having to say the 3rd and 2nd slot, which is this, assuming this is 3-slot card, you have this 2 plot to here, plug to here, and you have this, the 3rd one sticking out, then you're gonna have a problem. Reason being, right, there are no slot over here, and also this screw might just block it. So to have it this position, right, you can't have a 3-slot card. I wouldn't advise you to do this position with a 3-slot card. And having to say that, right, so sorry that I don't have a 3-slot card. If you to place it over here, filling up the 3-slot, right, do be careful of the thickness itself. If it's too thick, right, you might have a problem bending this riser cable, which is towards your motherboard, and to push the whole bracket in to fit nicely. Take note on this. Now, to mount the graphic card to this bracket itself, it's all up to individual. You can either place this bracket in and to house the graphic card, but I find it not very practical to do that. Reason being, right, you need to fiddle with the screw threads over here to hold the graphic card to the bracket. So I rather fit the graphic card first, then to place the whole mounting to the case. And second point is this thing over here, right? Oh, before you want to mount your graphic card, make sure you remove off this rubber protection. Now, as mentioned, back to the second point where I want to talk about, this thing here is very brittle. It can break easily, this whole PCB. So if you mount this to the case itself, and if you want to feeder the slot to here, right, inclusive of anchoring the slots over here to this 2 point, you might break this PCB. I wouldn't want to do that. That's why I'll be holding this way, and to mount to the bracket first, which I'm going to show you. What you need is just to tuck this cable to your mat, okay, giving a relievage for you to align. See, it's so easy to align. I can move up and down. Imagine this is in the case, right? You need to have 2 hands to hold on it, and it's like fiddling. It's kind of like clumsy. Alright, back to where I was. So this is the most easiest way for me to house the riser, the bracket with your GPU. See, it's already aligned. I eyeball behind where the 2 slots are, and I eyeball the connection point over here. So I just slot it in, and this is in. Once this is done, right, you can just tighten the screws over here. To place the bracket to the case itself, as you can see, this is my motherboard. First thing you need to do, just place it at the bottom of the case, then slot your card in slowly, but first insert this cable to the case first. See, this is done. Once this is done, right, just glide the whole thing in, supporting the bottom to the slot. You will need to do some minor adjustment. See, it's in place. Now, next thing you need to do is to screw the 3 screw holes over here, 1, 2, and 3, to your PCI bracket of the case itself. Before I do so, right, now the camera might look slanting, but just to show you, it's flat on the table, and this is how much sag you have gone down. Look at the bubble, it's right at the front. So with this said, adjust accordingly, take your time. So once this is in place, right, you know that the holes are matching. Okay, once this is done, right, make use of the other hand to support the bracket, then screw the screws in. Now I am screwing the center hole. Reason being, right, this is where the balance is. Okay, right now it's not aligned properly. Take your time to adjust the hole itself until it matches. Okay. See, this is in. Do pardon me that the table is a bit shaky. So once you've done this, right, do not screw all the way in. Reason being, right, as I mentioned, if you screw all the way in, right, this screw holes might be offset, so you can't screw it properly. So leaving some gaps as in like not fully tightened. You can do other minor adjustment. Again, with my left hand, right, I'm supporting the bracket and to put on the screws. Next will be the top screw. In fact, this should level the gauge. Now, what I do is just some minor tug at the top. At all times, right, do not hold the cut over here or over here. At the back, it's still okay because it still has strength. So once you're done with the minor adjustment, right, place your hand at the back again to support the bracket and not holding the cut. Then screw your screws in. I've done the top, now the bottom. Okay, once all screws are in, right, first thing you need to do, screw the center one first. This is where the balance is, which is very important. Then followed by the top, which is next. Make sure it's tightened. And once this is done, right, I showed you earlier, take a look. I place it here, see, or at the back. The bubble is at the center. Okay, let me just go slow. I'll put it at the front. See, I tilt this angle. So this is part of the reason why I am so hyped about this vertical mount. I mean the vertical GPU mount from Montech, because the way that they design it, right, it's engineer perfect. I don't even need to do adjustment to set the graphic parallel to your case, and it's always at a straight, a level line where it doesn't sag. Also, the rest of the GPU brackets that I've tried, I will need to either cut the sponge or maybe, you know, put the sponge taller and such in order to get this result. And best part of all, at the front, right, if your case has a bottom fan, see, this is a 120 mm fan that has a height of 25 mm. So we can place at the front to blow all the, to draw the cool air from the bottom and to cool your graphic card. You have seen how easy for me to fit this GPU mounting kit into the case with the graphic card on. If I'm not doing this content, in fact, to fit the brackets and to place the riser cable, plug the card, and to place it into the case itself, right, it takes less than 10 minutes. It's so easy. Speaking of which, right, do take note that this kit is only meant for ATX cases. If you are using MATX cases, it will not fit. Reason being, right, this mounting kit has total of 6 expansion slots. So for ATX will be 7 or 8 expansion slots. Else for MATX, right, you only have 5. Take note on this. Now, an ingenious design of this bracket itself, and I find that a lot of areas they have placed into details, things like the holder between the riser cable and the slot, same goes to here, to strengthen the PCB. Not only this, giving you more grip so that you can pull off from the motherboard or to solder it into the motherboard. Also, as I show you the level gauge with the bubble, this does prove my theory, whereby it doesn't, it doesn't sag your graphic card drastically. It acts as a support due to this holder over here. Well done. It's a very well engineered GPU bracket, and I think I'm going to use this GPU bracket for the rest of my builds. And best part of all, you can place a fan at the bottom, and even if your bottom have grills, right, and doesn't have the fan hose itself, you can use cable tie to tie the fans below it, where you just cool off the GPU itself. Well, I got to apologize one thing, because when I received this package itself, right, it doesn't look a lot to me. I was thinking that it's a cheap knockout GPU vertical bracket. To my surprise, never judge a book by its cover. When I take out the components, my goodness, as mentioned, well engineered. With this said, I'd like to thank Montech to have provided this unit for me to share with you guys. And for those of you who are actually new to my channel, welcome to my channel. If you like my content, do remember to subscribe and to click on the notification bell button. Till then, take care, goodbye, see ya.